Okay. Um, I One of the things that I've gotten from being in this Now What community that Ben has just done this incredible job of talking of mushrooms, just mushrooming outwards, is the restoration of hope in a really pragmatic feeling around that. So not hope as like a lovely red balloon that floats off into the distance, but hope as something that is reliable, sustainable, tenable, and attainable. And so it has a vibration of success. That's very important for someone like me who's done, like, apart from the fact that I'm an artist, so I have a slightly different kind of lifestyle from the regular 9 to 5. I've done a lot of activism, social activism and environmental activism. And it's a pretty thankless task, apart from the feeling that you're doing something that matters and that has to be done. So there's that sort of reciprocity with life itself. But it's not always joyful. And it's quite often dead ends into yet another law that passes that defeats your work somewhere in the world. And being in this network, the Now What network, I something in me has changed. Something radically, deeply in my psyche and my soul and my expectations has changed. And I now have a very different feeling. And part of it is because I keep meeting these really nice people, nice, intelligent people, creative people, determined people, unexpected people with all sorts of different backgrounds. And there's the thing that we all seem to have in common is this inquiry, this process of inquiring into how do we move forward, how do we support each other's work without adding to our own, how do we feed and nurture the new paradigm in a way that's not new agey, because just saying new paradigm sounds new agey. But yeah, but there's a lovely element of the practical. And your energy, Christiana, is that right? Yes. So
Christiana.
your energy, Christiana, you've got this vibrant optimism and this wonderful straight line perspective. It's like, well, why don't we just do this? So there's a sort of straight line element, but at the same time, it includes the systemic sort of relational considerations. So there's a complexity, but you make the complexity seem straightforward. And that's a skill that I find I meet. It's wonderful because I meet it in people in the Now What community more than anywhere else. I've met barely any egos in this environment, that have to be puffed up and need to be recognized. It's so much more about giving. And that I find that really, really exciting. So
You
that's
see,
what I'm getting from this.
in the
It,
previous session that we had, to add to your talk, I guess the element of surprise, like, okay,
Mhm.
you go to a meeting, you have no agenda, and it has the aroma of solving a problem. For
Yes.
example, we all have this question of how are we going to support this movement? How are we going to put a little bit of blood into this organism? Well, I discovered this, I did not know when I joined, but I discovered, A, money is too serious and it should not be that way. So all of a sudden, in that meeting, there is the fun element.
Mm.
A person said, we used to play games, and if we did not have fun out of these games, we were not going to play the game anyway. So in real life, here is my big chance of asking my people the following question. How much are you willing to pay for this experience of hope?
Hmm.
Because right now we're going to enter a room, we're all going to work here, but when you get out, you will have something in your head that is going to help you make it happen. What's the price attached to that? And let's have fun when we do it. I think money takes a different tangent, and life, it takes a different meaning. So I guess with Now What, it's the combination of using technology, using the networking to go all around the globe, meeting all kinds of people in an organized way, and yet keep the fun inside. I would never have been able to meet somebody like Clare, to hear that she embraces and she likes what I do, and maybe she could be the next person that is helping me, or she really enjoyed the moment. It doesn't have to be contractual.
Right.
And I guess this elasticity, this flexibility is what really is driving me inside Now What. The fact
Yes.
that I'm given enough room to grow in a very practical way, okay? In a very practical way, not just talk.
Yeah, and I like how open it is too. So it's practical, but it's not a doctrine, right? Because we just show up and we allow ourselves to become informed or surprised by novelty in each other's company. And just being curious enough to want to know what each of us does or has focused on, that takes us into new ways of thinking about things that we brought in with us. And it's incredibly supportive. Like, I know I'm with people that have been professionals all their lives in some way or another, and at the same time there's a humanness that feels reliable. And I'm very sensitive to energy, to people's energy, to people's agendas and intentions, and I pay attention to that. It's part of my work in the world to do that, in terms of what I teach people around creativity and innovation and management. So I love that I can actually just relax into my own potential in the environment of Now What, because the space is so well designed, and I haven't even scratched the surface of doing any networking. Like, this is all happening in these rooms over these sort of 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, because I think it happens twice a year for about 6 weeks, right? And you can just drop in when it suits your schedule. But what I found is that I've wanted to drop in more and more, because it's lifted my spirits as well as my vision. And as you say, what's that worth? We have one life. Whatever we believe about reincarnation and the rest of it, it's like, I know that I have this life. And at 55, I want to make sure that I don't live in plan B. I want plan A. And that requires a community to support its evolution.
And take it as follows. We here in Greece, we go to a village, and we go to a village coffee shop. There we have, with a very small token, and I'm talking about €1, okay? We buy coffee. And we feel that this is like absolute heaven, because with €1, you get to talk about your neighbor, you talk about your prime minister, you talk about shooting the moon, it's part of your life and you want to go there. So this is the first time when, yes, we did business, we did groups, we had items to talk, but also there is party room, coffee shop. So to me, it's like, because I cannot go out to my cafenio, which is the coffee shop in the village, I'm stranded, coronavirus is going on. Hey, I found my crowd. I found the people that I can go, how much is that worth? If I cannot pay 100 euros, very gladly I would pay, the amount of money that I would have paid in my cafenio. Very gladly. So it's not a matter of money. It's a matter of how content is your experience. Exactly what you are saying, Claire. That you are
Yeah.
discovering all kinds of, because you know what, people, like-minded people like you, go to this place, to this gathering place, and you feel comfortable, and you don't feel that you have an agenda. You don't feel like, you know, it's almost like a nice break, but at the same time, it made me think. It made me think. If I can take it to my people, would they understand that this thing, this tool, is giving them hope to plan, hope to dream,
Mm.
hope to move forward? It cannot just be a wasted time. It could be a very creative time.
You mean whilst we're in lockdown, the creative time, it doesn't have to be a waste of time? Or you mean
Yes,
generally?
generally.
Yeah.
Generally, for example, if I am inspired by this, because if I can do it in my community, or if I can other people to do it, all of a sudden they will be saying, oh, you mean we can have help from so in a different part of the world? You see, my people don't believe that there would be people interested in helping them.
Mm.
They are, by politicians and by the way of life, they have given up indecent people helping them.
Yeah.
And that's why they've lost hope. And we have gone through, as a nation, we've gone through hell,
Oh, I know you have.
literally.
Yeah.
So
Over.
exactly. So imagine that, how pertinent that question would be. How much does the price of hope
Mm.
mean to you?
Mm.
It's a very important question because I think hope, it has a relationship to imagination. Like when I feel hope, I'm also experiencing dreaming, and imagination. And I'm not sure if imagination comes forward as easily if there's no hope. Like there's something between those two.
Yeah.
But the third component that needs to be there for the spirit to kind of disengage and thrust forward is trust.
Yeah.
So I feel in here that you're not talking to me, and I personally, okay, and Ben, I don't feel that he is using me, or he's really opening up new worlds for me, and it's
Mhm.
not a commercial transaction. So I trust him. I
Yeah.
trust the next move. I trust that I will meet a very interesting person. So trust has to be built in.
Yeah.
So I guess why now what is a very good experience for me is because it has the three main components: the hope, the trust, and most importantly, the technical know-how as to how can I do this.
Yeah,
Because it
that's a
has
good
to be
point.
done.
Yeah. Mm.
And the technical piece, you talk about how would your people in the villages where you are relate to this? Would they believe that this is possible? And I think that, of course, you could invite some of them here to experience it. We're speaking English for the most part, so that might be a challenge for some. And I do see the potential for what we do here with the technology. The technology can support it to have conversations in whatever languages people want to. We may still need to use English as a way to share what we're learning more easily, but that only requires a few people being able to translate to do that. and so much of it is about just what's happening for each of us, as opposed to everything being shared and everybody knowing things. But I think there is also a place for that sharing out to the world. That relates to another thing I want to say. Well, so part of what we're doing here with the technology is we're showing what's possible. And the idea isn't just that it's only possible inside of this thing called Now What, right? What I'm doing isn't magic. And it's not even that hard to learn. I mean, by participating, you're learning pieces of it. And there's a group of us, this collective that's forming, that is growing the capacity to take these processes, these patterns, these technologies, these approaches, and bring them to other spaces, create new spaces. So there could be something just for the Meraki people that is not, it's not just inward for you, but is the way that you choose to connect with the wider world. And maybe Greek is the main language that's spoken too for that. There are Greek
Yeah.
people all over the world. And, why should the people who don't speak English have to be the ones who, who compromise, right, all the time?
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're learning we're training collectively to have some capacities that can spread beyond just this container called Now What. And one of the reasons to support Now What is to strengthen that capacity, right? So that we get enough of us get really good at this and at teaching other people how to do this in different ways. And that collectively we're expanding how we can do this, because I'm just scratching the surface with what I've put out there, and now others are coming in to build on that. That we get good enough that we can take it out into the world in lots of ways. There's someone who puts on a wonderful series of in-person gatherings called the Winter and Summer Gathering. So it's another one of these twice a year rhythms like Now What, but in the other seasons. Rick Ingrassi is his name, and his wife Katie Taylor. The two of them do this. The Winter Gathering is at the Whidbey Institute, which is near Seattle. And the Summer Gathering is on, I think, Cortez Island, which is in British Columbia, but the same area. And Rick has this wonderful saying: if you want to change the culture, throw a better party. Maybe it's changed the world. I think it's both. I don't know.
That's very Buckminster Fuller as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a little bit like that famous saying.
Yeah, it's good.
I
like
party
it.
element, right? Here we are. This is a room. We're in the rabbit hole breakout room of the Now What party calls right now, and just spontaneously decided to record this because we're moving into the final week of Now What, and it's time to activate flows of generosity more directly. There's been all kinds of flowing of generosity, I think, as the two of you have named so beautifully, and it's really touched my heart to hear the reflections from you both. And so as we're moving into this phase, I thought, well, let's record some words that might communicate to people, why this is valuable, why this is worth supporting with financial generosity, as well as other kinds. And certainly there's much, this field of generosity that's part of the vision for Now What includes much more than money, and it explicitly does include money. It was important to me from the beginning, and it took some courage. I did a number of things before this where I said, okay, money's going to be part of this one. It's going to be part, and I didn't have the courage to do it. But finally, it was like, it is time. And so back in May and June was the second Now What gathering of 2019, where we started working with money, and then we worked again with it in October and November, and now this will be the third time. And we're developing, how to have a new relationship to money. This is the first time the play element has been named, that you were talking about, Christiana, and I'm so excited to see how we can get creative with having money be an expression of play. And of the other thing that Dunya's named was relationship. So much of what the global economy, the world devouring machine that the developed world in the North has, spread like a terrible virus across the whole planet now, is about disintermediation and commodification, right? That we can use financial exchanges to mean I don't have to know anybody. I just have to have money and I can get what I want. I don't have to know the person who grew my food, or how my electricity is generated, or how, where the minerals in this computer came from. I can be completely detached from all of those human stories because of money. And the truth is, that's just the story we tell about money and the social agreements we have about money, and we can flip those. And so Dunya was saying, we can use money as a tool for building relationship. And of course, now what is all about relationships, that's the ground of it, is a space to connect across networks and movements and local to global to regional, all different scales. And we can be intentional about the money piece supporting that. And so I'm excited to see what sorts of games really we can play. And I'm imagining games in small groups, because the small group, I've been taught by this man, Peter Block, wrote this book, Community, the Structure of Belonging, that is actually the fabric of what we're doing. It's all about how you build social fabric to create a community capable of transformational. And so he says, now I've lost the what was I saying a second ago?
The money in the community building?
Right, that it's all about relationships. Oh, the small group, that's it. One of the things he says is the small group is the unit of transformation. So we have communities that have, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people, maybe more. I have a vision that now as a network maybe could scale to the size of a small town, maybe something not quite 20,000 people. But then there's this Dunbar number of 150 people.
Easily.
It could, yes. Well, I mean, that's what technology can do, right? Right now, it would break if that many people showed up. But with some investment in future iterations, we could get there when we're ready. But it's still, no matter what the scale is, it's the small group where we can be in relationship and our hearts can really open. And I can hear your story and really take it in, right? I mean, I encountered you on Facebook years ago, Christiana, through Fyodor Ovchinnikov's Evolutionary Leadership Community, which is a wonderful initiative that's interwoven with Now What to different degrees. But when I only heard your story on Facebook, and even when we had exchanges there, my heart didn't open to it. I thought, this is interesting, and I don't know how real it is. And Christiana's, what is this Meraki people thing? I couldn't quite connect. And even though, we've had several rounds of now connecting more, but in this call, in this moment, hearing you tell Clare about what you do, I felt like now my heart knows you. Hearing that you worked on Wall Street, on the New York Stock Exchange as well, where I also worked, and having synchronicities happen in this little conversation where before you got here, Clare and I were talking about being traders in the financial world, and we're talking about that because we were both swearing, or Clare swore and then apologized. Why are you apologizing for saying that? That's fine. I used to be a trader. We swore all the time. And then she said, oh, well, I was too. And then you come in and you tell the exact same story. You swear and you apologize, and then you tell us you were a trader on the New York Stock Exchange. That's just magic, right? So,
and what I really wanted to say at the end was, we in the Greek caffeine, we play backgammon. That's how we relate.
I love backgammon.
And I was thinking, usually in a backgammon, there are two players and they play against each other. And they play €5. So if I win, you give me €5. And if I lose, I give you €5. Okay? And it clicked in the other room, Ben. I thought, how about if we say we're going to play a backgammon game, but the money is not going to be given to the winner, it's going to be given to the community,
right?
Because we really love the community.
And here's the other thing, right? And this is true in your model too, that if we were, if this was in a certain context, we could be a self-sufficient village providing everything we need for all of us. But that's not the world we're living in now. So we need to connect to the wider world, just like your Meraki People Initiative needs to have an offering that people will support financially out to the wider world, products, services, whatever. And Now What is the same way. It needs to connect to the wider world. So the money that we're working with and circulating can't just come from inside of us and stay in this closed loop. I don't think. If it could, but to really reach the potential we want, I think we need to be offering services out to the wider world and bringing them, and having the wider world bring support and energy to us. And I think the Sonic Spring, this is the last thing I'll say, the Sonic Spring was an example of that, where the collective came together and created this offering for ourselves. We threw a party for ourselves, but we also started to create things the world can use, the Sound Garden, or some
Yes,
supporting Food
yes,
Day, some of what we're learning as well. And so I see that as the path, that as a collective, we start to think, what can we do that is an offering to the world, and that the world will receive and be and feel the gift, hearts open, right? That the arts are so important in that open people's hearts, and then
yes,
a flow of
yes,
generosity happens. And so what I believe is possible is that if we really stepped into that fully, if we all said, what are the gifts I would just love to give? And then if I trust that if I really show up, and if we all show up and do that, we will be supported at so many levels, including financial levels, for doing that. What could actually happen? And I think it could be amazing, especially as we get more
Yes.
skilled working as a collective, and our numbers grow a little bit, and we get a little better at asking for and working with money in these playful ways. So that's the vision, and I feel like we're making a huge leap towards it with this edition, and it'll be very interesting to see what happens with this particular financial piece this time around.